Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. I think, yeah, we're in June. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm half asleep right now, so my mind is probably going to be all over the place. But yes, in the month of May, I managed to read 14 books. I honestly wasn't even expected to get close to that, so I'm happy. I'm going to go in order from my lowest rating to my highest rating. It might be a little out of order because I do have I think a couple series that I want to talk about together. The lowest rated book that I had for the month was a 2.5 out of 5 stars, and that was Otakoi Love is Hard for Otaku Volume 1 by Fujita. So this follows this character named Narumi Momosi. I always struggle with these names, but she is actually an otaku, and basically that means that, or at least for her specifically, it means that she is obsessed with manga and anime and like certain video games, and I think it might be a little bit more in depth with her, but those are like her main focus of what she is an otaku, or what she's labeled as an otaku for. And one day she runs into a childhood friend of hers, which is the guy that's on the cover with her, and he is actually an otaku as well, but he is really hardcore into video games. She has always struggled with dating because when anyone finds out, or when the guys that she dates find out that she is an otaku, they end up dumping her. So she has a really big issue with this. She's been trying to keep it hidden, at least in the workplace. So when she runs into this guy and he asks her something that is related to both of their interests, or something that she's interested in, she's like, I'm gonna need you to keep that quiet. Just don't talk about that with anyone. And they end up starting a friendship again, and they end up hanging out a lot more because now that they know that they work together, she knows that she could go to him with any of the things that she's interested in, and he won't judge her for it. It gets to the point where I believe he offers her a relationship. So because she's always complaining about how she can't find anyone to date her because she's an otaku, so he's like, well, why don't you just date me? And I can do this, that, and we can talk about it's all of this stuff. So the premise of the story I felt like was really cute. It was more so the execution that I just wasn't the biggest fan of. I think the main issue that I had with this was that it would have like a chapter or two, and then it would have all these bonus comics that really, most of them didn't have anything to do with the storyline. It was just like extra information that wasn't always necessary. There were a few times where I did really like the bonus comics, but the majority of the time I was just like, why is this here? And I might not have had an issue with it more so because when I'm used to comics, when I read mangas, I'm used to the bonus comics and stuff like that being at the end of the main story. But just looking at this, I'm gonna try to find it right here. So it would do things like this. They had the first chapter in here, which was 16 pages. And then we went into like this type of stuff. I didn't necessarily mind because we didn't really get any background on the characters, but we would have like stuff like this. And then let's see, that's one chapter, and then we go right into these sections that have bonus comics, and then it'll be like pages of these bonus comics, and I don't even know how many of those it was. And it was just like each one was separate, and then it would go into another episode. And then I think it might have done that either between every chapter or every other chapter, it would do that. And I was just like, why? What is the purpose of this? So that kept breaking up my reading. I was getting really confused, and I'm just like, I've been reading manga enough to pretty much get it. And I was just like, half the time I was confused because I was just like, wait, why are we outside of the main storyline? I enjoyed the story, but it's just like the way that this was set up, I wasn't the biggest fan of. Like I said, I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I'm interested in where the story goes from here. I'm just not at the point where I think I want to buy more copies of this at the moment. I will eventually, I know for sure, pick this up to continue on and see where this goes, but right now it's just not like top priority. So I'm just like, it was good, but it wasn't my favorite or anything. So next I'm going to move on to my 3-star reads, and the first one of those that I want to talk about is Marked by Drew Elise. This one follows this woman named Kate, and at the beginning of the story, she is a single mother. She was married, but 3 years before, her husband ended up dying in a really tragic accident, and she has just kind of been pretending to move on and live her life for the past year or so, because before that she kind of just like stopped living her life completely. But because of her son, she's like, I need to at least pretend that things are okay. So at the beginning of the story, she's working in this bakery in this town, and then we also following this character. I believe his name is Liam. He is a tattoo artist that is working in the same town that she's now living in, and he is attracted to her, but he knows her situation. And although he's attracted to her, he's like, I'm not gonna act on it unless I know she's ready or anything. He makes a habit of going into this bakery every day or almost every day, and he tries to engage her in conversation. And I don't know if he has had any progress before, but obviously he gets to talking to her at the beginning of this story, and he kind of comes from a similar situation that she's been in, or at least his mother has been in a similar situation that she is now in. And he kind of offers her help if she wants anyone to talk to that's not part of the people who has been helping her out. And she kind of like really does not take well to that, so he kind of just backs off. But he ends up spending more time with her when she comes in and decides that she likes his design for a tattoo that she wants the best. So he ends up working on a tattoo for her, and they end up spending more time together. And the story kind of just takes off from there. I had mixed opinions at the beginning of the story. I thought that like I was enjoying seeing the progress of the characters. I was enjoying seeing how Kate progressed throughout the story, but I had a really hard time with her behavior. But I feel bad because I can't judge anyone for the way they handle grief, is basically what I'm trying to say. I think I read this at the wrong time, because right before I started this, I lost one of my best friends. Like, I had a friend who 25 died of cancer, like literally, I think the week, or maybe not even the whole week, a few days before I started reading this. And I get it, we're in different situations, but like she was at a point where like she was basically a sister to me, and I just couldn't imagine, like, not saying that you can't grieve, because everyone grieves in their own way, but the main character in this book, she completely stopped living her life, and she would think in her head the way her husband would think. And he would tell her, like, or she would tell herself in his voice, like, you can't just stop living your life. You need to, it's okay to grieve, it's okay to love me, but you need to move on. You need to live. And she didn't feel like she had the right to, or she felt like if she did continue to live her life, then she felt guilty because she felt like she was betraying him because he was gone. And I was just like, you can't think like that. So like, I enjoyed seeing her start to open up, but at the same time I also knew that she wasn't ready for the relationship that was starting between them. And he wasn't going to take it anywhere, but then it got to a point where, because he was like, I'm not going to do anything unless you tell me you're ready. And at a point in the story, she did come to him and tell him she was ready, but I was just like, I don't think she is. And he didn't think she was, but she's like, no, I'm ready. And it just kind of made things blow up when they didn't need to. Another thing that I was really worried about with the story was that the author was going to make it like a love cures everything type of situation. And I'm glad that she didn't take it there, because Like I said, after that point where she did tell him she was ready, something ends up happening where it's very clear that she's not ready to move on with him. And the author used that to show that a character, like a person, has to be willing to take that next step for themselves. They can't take it for another person. Besides that, it wasn't like a spectacular love story for like romance for me. I appreciated the topics that it covered, but it just wasn't like the best thing ever, basically. Almost forgot to mention, I do have a written review for Marked. I will leave it linked in the description if you guys want to check it out. It's also on my blog, which is always linked down below, and it's also on Goodreads. But moving on, now I have two books I'm going to talk about together. One I gave 3 stars, the other I gave 3.5. They're both part of the same series, and that is Happy Marriage Volume 2, Happy Marriage Volume 3. I gave Volume 2 a 3 stars, Volume 3 a 3.5 stars. I'm just talking about these together, obviously, because they're part of the same series. So Volume 2 mainly focuses on the two of them really getting to know each other a bit more and getting more into their relationship. Volume 3 focuses on Chiwa, which is the female character, learning more about Hokuto. He gets to know more about his past and his family life, and they actually go visit some of his family. And it's like a big revelation in their relationship. So, yeah, like I said, gave Volume 2 3 stars, gave Volume 3 3.5 stars. I enjoy this series, and I think there's like 9 or I can't remember how many volumes are in this series, but obviously I'm going to continue to read this. I really enjoy them, even though I don't rate them as high as I probably could, but I think because these are more so introductions that there isn't a whole lot going on, but as they continue, I know that a lot more happens, and overall I really love this series, so I'm going to continue to collect and read them. So the next 3.5 star book I'm going to talk about is Everyone's Getting Married, Volume 2 by Azumi Miyazano. This volume is more of a focus on, once again, these two main characters getting to know each other, and them also having to deal with their busy schedules, mainly his busy schedule, because it's a point in his career where things are really starting to pick up and he has had a lot more things, and while he wants to spend time with her, he's having to try to do that while also juggling his work and hers as well. So we're dealing a lot with that. They're still on opposing sides on when it comes to marriage, but their relationship is definitely progressing, and it was really cute. Like I said, I gave this one a 3.5 stars. I really don't have too much to say about the series. The next couple books I have to talk about are both part of the same series as well, and that is A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. I gave A Court of Wings and Ruin a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This was technically a reread for me. I decided to reread this one before going into the novella that came out this year. I decided to do that just because I haven't reread this one since I read it the first time, and I knew I was pretty mediocre about this one compared to the second book especially. I just felt like this was a pretty disappointing conclusion to the first part of this trilogy. I just thought there weren't enough risks taken in this one, or if the risks were taken, they were all taken back, and I was just like, really, Sarah J. Maas, like, for real, this is how you do this? But I decided to reread it. There were parts that I enjoyed, obviously, but I just thought overall this was okay. And moving on, after I read that, or I don't think it was right after, but the next one that I have is Court of Frost and Starlight. This is another one I have mixed opinions on. I actually gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I just decided to talk about this like this because of the way it falls in the series. But I enjoyed being able to spend some more time with the characters, which was really the main focus of this. But I felt like most people said, that there wasn't a lot going on in this one. I didn't really care to see the characters Christmas shopping for each other. And it's like, I didn't really care too much because I just like it didn't really add anything to the story. Like I knew this was supposed to be a bridge book between the first part of the series and where the series is going next. And while I saw some of those elements within this, I was expecting to see more of where the series might go. And honestly, I feel bad saying this, but my favorite part of this novella was a little chunk at the end that was like a sneak peek into the next book. I did have moments that I enjoyed. Mostly the moments where Feyre and Rhys were together by themselves, I really enjoyed. Yeah, that was pretty much it. I felt terrible saying it because it wasn't really a whole lot of those moments. Even some of those moments were a little weird, but I am looking forward to the next book in the series because I was hoping that the two characters that it seems like it's going to be following were going to be the next two characters, so I'm hoping to see a lot from that. I want to see a lot from these characters, so I'm hoping that after this, I hate to say it, but after this kind of useless novella, I hope that the rest of the series gets a lot better. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't think it was terrible, but it definitely, I felt like, wasn't worth being put out, at least at the time that it was put out. So yeah, I was just kind of about this one as well. The next 3.5 star book that I have to talk about is I Flippin' Love You by Helena Hunting. This is another one that I received an eARC for review. So if you guys are interested in checking out my full review, that is up. Yeah, I put that up last week, I believe. So that is up already if you guys are interested in that one. This one follows these two characters named Ryan and Pierce. I think his name is Pierce. Sorry if it's not. These two characters end up meeting by chance after Pierce mistakes Ryan for her twin sister. Her twin actually hit his car and kind of just drove off without doing anything. So he goes back to this grocery store to try to find her. Finds her sister. And once he realizes that she isn't the same person, he's like, oh, well, I'm attracted to you. So he basically tries to get her contact information too, because he's interested in her as well as, you know, getting stuff taken care of that he needs taken care of. And the story basically starts from there. He lets her know that he's interested in her and he's trying to get her to go on a date and all of this stuff. It's a pretty adorable romance. It wasn't like one of my favorite. It was really cute. I really like seeing Ryan open up to Pierce and Pierce kind of starting to trust her after having his own thing go wrong in like past relationships and stuff like that. So it was a really nice read and one that I could see quite a few people enjoying. The next book that I have to talk about is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I finally read it, y'all. I finally read it. This book follows Jude, and since she was about 6 or 7, I believe, she has been living in Fairy with her sisters after her parents were killed and they were all taken off to live in the fairy world. So now she is 16 or 17 and she is trying to find her place in this world, and it's basically where the story starts. I thought it was an okay book. I felt like this book might have been a little overhyped. I know a lot of people enjoyed it, and I thought, like I said, I thought it was okay for the most part. I think because this is the first book and there is so much setup in this that it took me a while to get connected to these characters. It wasn't until maybe about the last quarter of the book that I was just like really invested in the story, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where, you know, the rest of this series or trilogy, whatever it's going to be, where the rest of this goes, because the ending was on point and it was good. It was good. The next book that I gave 3.5 stars to was Whispered by Lynette Noni, and I picked this one up because I actually got an eARC for this one for review as well, and I picked up the physical copy because when I finally went to go start reading the eARC, it wasn't formatted well. This is another one. I thought it was a good introduction to the story. I just felt like because there was a lot of getting introduced into the world, and what exactly is going on in the power system and all of that stuff. It was just kind of, I don't want to say it was info dumpy, but it was just a lot of introduction, and I felt like it was a lot of setup into wherever the rest of the series is going. I'm not really sure how many books are going to be in this, because as of now it's only listed as his first book. But I thought it was good, and I am definitely interested in seeing where it goes from here. The next couple books I have to talk about are both part of the same series. First one of those is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This is the set of novellas that take place before the first book, and I decided to read this first for that reason, and I'm really happy that I did. This was a lot more interesting than the first book, at least the first time that I remember reading it. I was just really invested in this one, and I guess I really enjoyed seeing how Selena was before she was captured and put into, the prison camp. And we got to see a good portion of what led up to those events happening, where she was captured and where she was in the first book. So I really enjoyed seeing that, and this was just a lot of fun. I thought this was really good. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, I believe. So then I moved into Throne of Glass. I went into this one, and I feel like I enjoyed it a lot more than the first time that I read it, because I had read The Assassin's Blade. There was a lot of references in this book that I understood because of The Assassin's Blade. I'm sorry, my arm is hurting, that's why I keep switching back and forth. But a big part of the reason why I was having troubles the first time I read Throne of Glass was because there was a lot of things that were mentioned in this one that I felt like I should have known about that I didn't, and I just felt lost half the time I was reading this, because it was just like so much I felt like I didn't know about what was going on. But upon rereading this after reading The Assassin's Blade, like, I didn't remember the majority of the story, so it almost felt completely new. But there was so much that I understood, and I knew what they were talking about because I had that background. So I really appreciated that. And if you ask my suggestion, I would definitely say read The Assassin's Blade before you start the rest of the series, because I feel like it gives a lot of insight into this first book, and it makes you okay that there isn't really a whole lot going on, because really there's not too much going on in this book. There's a lot of training, and there's a few action scenes, but overall there isn't really much to the story besides her getting back in shape after coming out of the salt mines for a year. So yeah, I enjoyed this one, but it's probably going to be my least favorite out of the entire series. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So the second to last book that I wanted to talk about was Atlas Fallen by Jessica Pierce. This is a YA sci-fi novel following 2 characters mainly. The first character is Tesla, and she used to be part of her space station's elite training program, but then her father was branded as a traitor, and then after everything went down with her father, she was stripped of her rank, and in order to help her have some extra money, she ends up working for one of the gangs that is on the space station that she's living on. The other character this is following is Daxton, and he is actually visiting the space station, and part of the synopsis says that he's not just visiting to celebrate the centennial of the crown. He's hunting terrorists, and one thing leads to another, and he ends up enlisting Tesla's help to help him while he's, trying to find this terrorist aboard the space station. So this is told in like a third person dual perspective. Like I said, we're following Tesla and Daxton, and I don't want to really get into too many details because I feel like some of it, even though I guessed it, could still possibly be a shock factor of the story. But I really enjoyed this one. I couldn't give this one a full 5 out of 5 stars because I will admit it did take me a little bit to get into it. I felt like it took me a while to adjust to the writing style, and I have to give this book a lot of credit considering I read this book towards the end of the month. I think this was one of the last books that I finished in May. And usually when I get to the end of the month, especially considering how many books I read, I usually am kind of tired out and kind of just really not mostly in the mood to read by that point. But this book really held my interest, and once I got to a certain point, I didn't want to put it down. And it was really action packed, and there was a lot going on, and it was really good. And I can't wait to see where the series goes from here. Gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. The last book that I have to talk about in this video was Jacques by Sarah Ney, and I was really interested in this one because I read another book by this author before and I really enjoyed it. So after reading the synopsis of this and it sounded really interesting, I decided to pick it up, and I'm really happy that I did. This is a new adult novel, so it does take place in college. Not that all new adult novels take place in college. Anyway, this one does. And because I read this so early on, I can't really remember the characters' names, but I know that the main female character, she is like the sober friend of her friend group or something like that is how the synopsis kind of describes her. And like every time she goes to the parties with her friends, I think she has 2 friends that she mainly goes with, she's the one who will like convince them not to go sleep with whatever guys or whatever that they might possibly be thinking about hooking up with while they're drunk. You know, she's the one that's like, maybe that's not a good idea. So after so many times doing this, people begin to know who she is, and obviously that's not necessarily a good thing when she's going to these same places. So it's one specific night when she's doing this, and they're at like a house full of baseball players, I believe. So these players get really mad at her. So they end up going to one of the upperclassmen and basically asking him to get rid of her. So he does that, and pretty much a relationship forms from there. And I know it kind of sounds a little cheesy and it might not be everybody's thing, but I thought this was so well done. I was not expecting to enjoy this one anywhere near as much as I did, because the way this was set up, it wasn't like, I don't want to say like a typical new adult book, but it was like it was and it wasn't at the same time, because this one was more of a focus on these 2 characters meeting. It was like a chance meeting and the progression of their relationship from there. There was no really big conflict or anything, and it was really of them getting to know each other and them falling in love with each other in the process of this really awkward first encounter with each other. It was just so cute. I don't know. It was so good, and I'm so happy that I read this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know if that's high enough. I don't know. I did really enjoy it. I think maybe because when I read it, there were still errors and stuff in it, even though this was a finished copy, and there were some inconsistencies. I think that's why I lowered my rating. And I know that's kind of like nitpicking at it, but I'm like, if this is supposed to be a finished copy, I feel like those things should have been like double and triple checked by an editor, and like someone should have caught it at some point before it was actually published. But you know, sometimes mistakes happen like that. So yeah, story wise, I would probably give it a 5 out of 5 stars, but because of some of those things, I just couldn't, you know, go above and beyond for this one. Those are all the books that I read in May. This is a pretty average reading month for me. I feel like the majority of the books that I read were 3 and 3.5 stars. I did have some good ones in there, but overall I think it was just an okay reading month. So if you have read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them down in the comments. And that's all I have for you guys in this video, and I will see you guys again in the next one. Bye.